Number 9, I have always heard you talk about how we only vote for people instead of issues. Do you think the national initiative would be a good transition for the Venus Project? Well, I would have to, unfortunately, say I need to look into what the national initiative is. I don't know what that is, unfortunately. I've been so caught up with things, but I will look into that after this is over. I can assume what it might be. Basically, when it comes to democracy and voting, as I denote in the activist orientation, there really was never a democracy, because in order to have a democracy, a true democracy where everyone participated would be insane in the current lack of education environment, so to speak, because everyone's value systems are so astray at this point in time. And this is a touchy subject, and I'm going to talk about this more so, I think, as other questions move forward, because I believe there's another one similar. But essentially, as far as democracy is concerned, people's contributions are related to how society actually functions. So, in this society, there's no reason for someone to vote for taxes because taxes don't exist. There's no reason for a particular legislation for many of the things that we think that we need to have participation in. And unfortunately, if you look at the way society functions now, democracy is a complete illusion, and it always was. In the new system, democracy is basically a contribution to the technical processes of society on multiple levels. I go through this in detail in the activist video. And essentially, you contribute into the system. It's picked up initially by a computerized database that can understand what you're asking. Let me quickly elaborate on that. So let's say, for example, you have an invention. And as I said in the manual, industry and government are the same thing, because there's no reason. All any larger organization has to be is an organization that provides the goods and services for the people and oversees the environment. That's all government is. That's all it would ever need to be. Everything else has been manufactured on top of this simplistic reality. So if someone wants to contribute, they go and they contribute and propose to a system. So if you have something you want to invent, say you have an innovation for the airline industry, so to speak, an airline, a plane. So you would input this new proposal into the system, and the system would be intelligent enough to say, well, you know what? The materials that you're proposing were actually tried in 1975, and we came to realize that it couldn't stand this particular dynamic, so it had to be replaced with a better material. And based on our current calculations, and because the computer system understands the database, understands everything that's out there, it can immediately give you feedback about improvements to your product that you're trying to invent. They'll say you have a design for a wingspan. Well, the system will say, well, based on the general laws of aerodynamics, we would recommend that you did this, this, and this. And if the computer, in its feedback, sees that what you're proposing has merit based on what's currently in existence, which is a logical, technical process, then it's submitted into the system and it moves forward. And this would go in the same type of logic for any type of so-called political idea, even though there's no such thing as politics. Say, for example, you had an idea for a large underwater tunnel that went from one continent to another. Well, the computer system would understand the gravity associated with the water pressure. It would understand what could be built and what couldn't. It would understand problems with the tidal shifts in construction, about how difficult it would be, how long it would take. And maybe it would be rejected by the system because we didn't have, at that point in time, the technological ability to do it. This is the type of initial interaction and feedback that will exist in the future. And to think it's mystical or it's idealistic is untrue. These types of this type of technological feedback already exists, but on a smaller scale. We just want to make the focus to maximize it so our decision makings can be delegated to machines at their initial stages. Our creativity is still in existence, but we are balancing it out with technology that I can understand physically what's relevant and technologically possible. So that is what a true democracy would be. You don't just go and punch a card and vote people in. That's a joke, and it always was. In order for people to contribute to society, they have to understand how society works. So until they're educated enough to understand how technical processes work, they really can't contribute to society because they don't have the basis to do so in this system. It's not about voting for tax cuts, as I said before. There's no taxes. There's no money. And when you look back and you realize that the majority of people that things fight about in regards to legislation in democracy, it's all money related. So all of that's gone. So I hope that's relatively clear. That's a very long-winded topic, and if it's not clear, post a note on the forum or the new page I'm going to set up for the radio show, and I can elaborate more on this in time, but I want to try and get through the rest of these questions.